The woman slapped the paper cup out of his hand. Coffee exploded across the sidewalk. For one frozen second, the entire city seemed to go silent. The homeless man looked down at the brown stain spreading across his worn jacket. Then he slowly lifted his eyes toward her. "Please," the woman snapped. "Don't come near me again." People walked past. Some stared. Some whispered. No one helped. The man said nothing. He simply bent down and picked up the crushed paper cup. What nobody knew was that the man, sleeping beneath the bridge, that night was the secret owner of the company where that woman worked. And the next morning, he was going to walk into her office wearing a tailored suit. But before that happened, he would discover something that would change the way he saw his entire company and the woman who had humiliated him. His name was Daniel Reed. To the world, Daniel Reed was a mystery. He had founded Reedstone Technologies at 28, built it into a multi-billion-dollar company before 40, and then seemingly disappeared from public life. There were no interviews, no social media accounts, no magazine covers, no public appearances. His employees knew only that the CEO rarely showed his face, and that important decisions came through a small group of executives. Most people assumed Daniel lived in some enormous mansion outside the city. They were wrong. For the last 3 months, Daniel had been sleeping in a small apartment above an old bakery. But nobody knew that either. He had deliberately removed himself from his company. The reason was simple. Daniel had begun to suspect that Reedstone Technologies had changed. When he founded the company, he had promised himself it would be different from every other corporation. People would matter. Employees would be treated with dignity. Success would never be measured only by money. But after years of growth, Daniel began hearing stories that troubled him. Employees were being pressured to work unpaid hours. Older workers were quietly pushed out. Janitors were ignored. Security guards were treated as invisible. And executives who once spoke passionately about company culture now arrived in luxury cars and complained about the cost of helping struggling employees. So Daniel made a decision. He would disappear. He shaved his beard, grew his hair, donated most of his expensive clothes, and began visiting the places his employees passed every day. Bus stops, soup kitchens, public parks, shelters. He wanted to see his company from the perspective of people who were never invited into the boardroom. For 3 weeks, he had been spending his mornings outside a coffee shop across from Reedstone Technologies. Most people ignored him. Daniel expected that. What he didn't expect was to meet Emily Carter. Emily was 29, overworked, underpaid, and trying desperately to keep her life from falling apart. She worked as an executive assistant at Reedstone Technologies. Her father had recently suffered a stroke, leaving her responsible for his medical bills. Her younger brother was in community college. And every month, Emily somehow managed to make her paycheck stretch further than it should have. She was tired. Not ordinary tired. The kind of tired that made a person forget what happiness felt like. That morning, she had slept for 2 hours. Her car had broken down. Her manager had sent her 15 angry emails. And her bank account contained exactly $43. She entered the coffee shop, ordered the cheapest drink available, and hurried outside. That was when Daniel spoke. "Excuse me." Emily stopped. Daniel was standing near the entrance. His jacket was worn. His shoes were cracked. His face looked exhausted. "Could you spare some change?" he asked. Emily looked at him. Then she looked at the coffee in her hand. Something inside her snapped. "Are you serious?" Daniel blinked. "I'm sorry." "You stand outside this place every day," she said. "Every single day. You ask people for money, and then you follow them when they say no." "I don't follow people." "Really?" A few people nearby turned to watch. Daniel lowered his eyes. "I only asked." Emily laughed bitterly. People work hard for what they have. The words came out sharper than she intended. Daniel stared at her. She immediately knew she had gone too far. But she was angry. Angry at her manager. Angry at the hospital. Angry at the world. And unfortunately, he was standing in front of her. You know what? She continued. Maybe instead of begging, you should get a job. The silence around them grew. Daniel slowly nodded. You're right. That answer somehow made her feel worse. But before she could say anything, a young girl ran toward him. Mr. Daniel. The girl was about 8 years old. She wore a pink jacket and carried a paper bag. She rushed into his arms. Emily watched as Daniel's entire face changed. The exhausted stranger suddenly smiled. Hey, Sophie. You promised you'd save me a muffin. I did. He reached into his bag and pulled out a muffin wrapped in a napkin. The girl smiled. Emily froze. The muffin had come from the coffee shop. The same place where she had seen Daniel every morning. He wasn't begging for food. He had been buying food for the child. Emily looked toward the street. A woman in a wheelchair was sitting near the bus stop. An elderly man was leaning against the wall. 2 teenagers were sharing a blanket. Daniel had been giving them food every morning. He wasn't asking people for money because he wanted luxury. He was trying to help people survive. Emily looked back at him. Her face burned. Daniel said nothing. He simply handed Sophie the muffin. Then he walked away. Emily stood there, unable to move. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept remembering the way he had looked at her. Not angry. Not bitter. Just disappointed. The next morning, Emily returned to the coffee shop. Daniel was there. She approached him slowly. I'm sorry. He looked at her. She took a breath. I was wrong yesterday. Daniel nodded. Thank you for saying that. I shouldn't have judged you. No, he said gently. You shouldn't have. The honesty hurt. Emily looked down. I was having a terrible day. So was I. She looked up. Daniel smiled faintly. For the first time, Emily noticed that there was something unusual about him. The way he spoke. The way he watched people. The way he seemed to listen as if every word mattered. Over the next few days, Emily began talking to him. She learned that he had once worked in technology. She learned he had lost someone he loved. She learned he had spent years helping people who had nowhere else to go. But Daniel never told her his real identity. And Emily never asked. One afternoon, Daniel noticed Emily sitting alone on a bench, crying. What's wrong? She wiped her eyes. Nothing. People say that when something is wrong. She gave a tired laugh. My father's hospital bill went up again. Daniel sat beside her. How much? She shook her head. Don't. I'm not offering money. Then why ask? Because sometimes people need someone to know what they're carrying. Emily stared at him. And suddenly, she began crying harder. She told him everything. Her father. Her brother. The bills. The fear that she would lose everything. Daniel listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer a magical solution. When she finished, he simply said, You shouldn't have to carry all of that alone. The next morning, Emily received an email from Reedstone Technologies. The subject line read, New CEO announcement. She opened it while sitting at her desk. Her hands froze. The email announced that the company's founder, Daniel Reed, would personally return to the office after years away. A photograph appeared beneath the announcement. Emily stopped breathing. The man in the photograph was the same man she had called a beggar. The same man whose coffee she had knocked from his hand. The same man she had told to get a job. Daniel Reed. Her CEO. Her secret billionaire CEO. Emily felt the room spin. That afternoon, every employee was called into the main conference room. Executives stood nervously near the front. The doors opened. Daniel walked in. This time, he wore a dark suit. His hair was neatly styled. His posture was straight. The room went silent. Emily sat frozen in the second row. Daniel looked across the room. His eyes stopped on her. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then he walked to the podium. I've spent the last 3 months watching this company from the outside, he said. Several executives exchanged nervous glances. I saw how people were treated when they thought no one important was watching. His gaze moved across the room. I saw a security guard denied a break because an executive was late. I saw a janitor cry in a stairwell because her hours had been cut. I saw employees afraid to ask for help. Then he looked at Emily. And I saw a woman who was exhausted, frightened, and angry. Emily lowered her eyes. Daniel continued. She made a mistake. Emily looked up. But so did I. The room became completely silent. I built a company that promised to value people. Then I became so focused on protecting the company that I stopped seeing the people inside it. Daniel paused. That's my failure. The executives looked stunned. Then Daniel announced a series of changes. A new employee assistance program. Emergency medical support. Fair scheduling. Mental health resources. Better wages for support staff. And a fund for employees facing unexpected family emergencies. Emily listened with tears in her eyes. After the meeting, she found Daniel alone in the hallway. I thought you were going to fire me. Daniel smiled. I considered it. Emily's face fell. Then he laughed softly. But not for the reason you think. She looked confused. I considered firing you. Because you are clearly terrible at recognizing billionaires. Emily stared at him. Then, despite herself, she laughed. It was the first real laugh she had shared in weeks. Daniel's smile faded gently. Emily, I want you to know something. What? Your father's medical bills have been covered. She immediately stiffened. No. It's part of the employee assistance program. You can't do that because of me. I didn't. Daniel. I didn't do it because you apologized, he said. I didn't do it because you were kind to me later. She stared at him. I did it because you needed help. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Daniel continued. Everyone deserves help when life becomes too heavy. Even people who make mistakes. Emily wiped her cheeks. I was awful to you. You were human. I judged you. So did almost everyone else. But I hurt you. That matters.